Hey all, CyberOwlLive here again. So I wanted to briefly touch upon where the current state of eSports is. Because right now we're in an interesting spot where eSports is both in a good place and a bad place, to be perfectly honest. When you really think about it, eSports is arguably one of the biggest blow-ups of any industry that we've experienced in the last decade. I mean, one thing we could look at is the way the technology industry has blown up in the cusp of 2001-ish, like with the age of cell phones, laptop computers, and basically portable technology. I want to look at the way esports has kind of become like the new tech age, in a way. But why that's both a good and bad thing. So I want to go ahead and touch upon a couple of things that are important to note, but they're not the end all be all, you know? Um, I'd say that if anything, it's a lot more, we need to be careful rather than, oh, this is where esports is and this is guaranteed and certainty and no, none of that shit. Alright, so point number one that I want to go ahead and bring up with esports is the fact that there have become a lot more jobs in esports. You have all sorts of jobs popping up, from video editing, sound editing, casting, being an analyst, being a player, being a coach, being an analyst, like for the teams themselves, not just on camera personality, being a host, being an IT guy for these tech places or these esports joints. The list honestly just goes on. There's an astronomical list of jobs. And like I mentioned in my previous video, for casting specifically, it's a little dicey. Mostly due to the fact that there are no set precedents for casting yet, as far as unionization is concerned, as far as, okay, we need to go ahead and make sure that casters are protected, because casters are important to a broadcast. Plain and simple. They're important. But that's a video that I already addressed, so I'm going to go ahead and move on from that. I'm going to be a little bit more general with this one. So, esports, with its current position, a lot of what esports is based on is the popularity of a game. The amount of money that a company will invest into its esports department, into creating a game that has an esports element to it. Fighting games are a great example. Fighting games have existed since like the inception of gaming, for the most part, starting with games like Street Fighter. And all those games, you'd have people coming together, playing in tournaments, and playing against each other to see who's the best. That's still the case to this day. You got conventions like Defend the North popping up that have become what used to be relatively grassroots, one of the new stops in the Capcom Pro circuit, because that's how much money gets invested into the fighting game scene. And the fighting game community is so vast and openly accessible that it makes it very easy for people to say, okay, you know, we can see the successes in this, we can see the potential, we can see where the audience is, and we're not going to be losing out if we invest ourselves into it. Now, that's what the fighting game community. Look at the MOBA community. The MOBA community is humongous. But most of the MOBA community plays League of Legends. And I will say that MOBAs that have come out since the inception of League of Legends haven't exactly been treated with the same amount of respect and the same amount of fairness that League of Legends was. I think the biggest game that comes to mind is Infinite Crisis. I think it's what it was called, the DC fighting MOBA that had like Nightmare Batman and all those characters you could play in a MOBA style, and it looked really cool, but the backing wasn't there. The fans tried to keep it alive, and then it just wasn't enough to keep the actual game alive. You got Heroes of the Storm, which is a fun game, but it's a very casual version of League of Legends, I guess you could say, mostly because of the lack of gold, lack of items, and heavy reliance on team play and individual skill trees rather than a singular skill tree and having branching items. Whoever builds the best obviously will win. And they're the pros and cons each, but when you really look at it, Heroes of the Storm, because of the lack of items, it loses that essence of complexity as well. Because there is a strict meta in Heroes of the Storm for skill trees. And because of that meta, because there's very clearly a best route, there's no point in having skill trees. So, at least that's my gripe with Heroes. Dota 2, which is the more complex of all of the MOBAs that are out right now, it's just not as easily accessible for people who have been honestly accustomed to playing League of Legends, accustomed to playing Heroes of the Storm. It's a lot more difficult to play, and arguably you get much more reward for playing it because you feel accomplished winning a 40-minute long MOBA match compared to in League of Legends, and there's a lot more one person can go on a massacre and just completely destroy everybody. It's cool. It leaves a really nice element of anything can happen, which you don't get a lot of from MOBAs. But here's the problem with the MOBA market. It's saturated as hell. You have dozens upon dozens upon dozens of teams that are in esports, and maybe 10% of them are actually good. But because of the MOBA market having so many, I will be perfectly frank, waste of money teams, if you were from an investor point of view, if you were an investor, okay, I'm looking at this team, they're middle of the road, they're not really worth the money. They're making claims that they can be better than X, Y, and Z team, TSM, Cloud9, Team Liquid, whatever the case may be. And at the end of the day, it ends up becoming a matter of, okay, do I want to run the risk of investment? Or do I want to look elsewhere for a more surefire investment? And there's a lot of investment into teams and players that is completely unwarranted. That's the sad truth behind it. And a lot of that also starts to make investors reflect on esports in a negative light. Because there's no set standard for players in esports either. You got obviously some of the best players in the world, like for the fighting game community, you got players like Mango, oh my god, Daigo Umehara, or Justin Wong, and for League of Legends you got Faker, you got Bjergsen, people like that. You have these people that are very definitively, these are the best players. But for them to get scouted took them reaching the top of their platform. Bjergsen, for the Western countries, got noticed really when he was on Lemon Dogs, and then he went over to TSM where they basically built a team around him and let him shine. Faker just went from grassroots in Korea to dumpstering everybody in solo queue, and now he's at a point where he's on SKT, which is considered the biggest org. Arguably, I guess it's being really dependent on which kind of team. I'd say for League of Legends exclusively, SK Telecom T1 is the biggest team. And now he's worth the most in esports. Give or take a couple of people, but they'll be in different industry, or a different part of the industry, rather than in the League of Legends scene. So, not everybody is going to be Bjergsen, not everybody's going to be Faker, but you really never know who you might end up investing in, and whether or not these players are going to be players that grow with time, are stagnant, or are just not worth it. And there's a lot of players that are just not worth it. A lot of teams that are just not worth it. And honestly, that's why we see a lot of players from like the old guard, other teams, coming to the Western states to revitalize themselves. It's a very... the people who were good stay good for a long time kind of industry. So a lot of what you want to do is to back players that have a significant backing or have proven themselves in some capacity. the faker of whatever game, that'd be the person you want to back over, say, Steve from, I don't know if he's still on Rocket or if he's on another team, but whatever. Like, we have players like Steve who, he's a great player. No doubt about that. But you won't back him like you would a faker. And he's not as consistent as, say, Baker. So with that in mind, it ends up becoming, okay, do I want to throw money at somebody who might crash and burn, or do I want to throw money at somebody who's consistently been able to make people say, this is the guy to look at, this is the one we want to see, this is the guy we want to support? So what we need to do as an esports community, or I guess industry, I won't say community because that sounds a little bit too grassroots, esports industry, because that's exactly what it is at this point. It's not something small, it's something astronomical. What we need to do as an industry is to go ahead and make systems for the players and people who are going to be staff, so that there would be a way to constantly be having people become the next faker. There are stuff like coaching classes and whatnot, and you got people who tout, oh hey, I can make you the next faker. Bull. No one person will be able to do that. Not a single one. That is systems that have to be integrated into esports, both as far as players and staff are concerned, in order to develop talent. And right now, there isn't a lot of talent development being done in this scene. There isn't a lot of caster development. There isn't a lot of player development to a certain extent. Some games do have like player development schools in a sense. Like you got people like Mind Games Weldon on Twitter, who does League of Legends coaching and League of Legends analytical coaching, which I think is cool because he's teaching people how to be coaches. I think that's great. I think that's a worthwhile investment. There needs to be more of stuff like that, and less of, oh, you want to get to Diamond? I can show you how to get to Diamond in like the cheesiest way possible, but it's not going to really do much for you in an esports sense, so it won't really matter too much in the long run. You're going to be wasting your money. You have a lot of stuff like that, and it's unfortunate. So, as far as my idea, here's my idea. And it would take a lot of money, it would take a lot of bodies, and it would take a lot of effort. But for me, my ideas, this is for players. Only for players. I'm not talking casters, I'm talking players. I'll talk about casters immediately after this one. So, what I think for players needs to exist is being in these pseudo esports environments. Because a lot of what goes into esports has to do with your mentality regarding the game and your mentality regarding being on stage. Because stage fright's a thing. Being able to be in front of people, being able to be in front of an audience, being able to be on camera, all of these are important things that a lot of people tend to take for granted. A lot of people can't do these things successfully because what ends up happening? They end up getting stage fright. They end up not being able to talk. They end up stumbling over the words. They end up not being able to perform on camera because they know they have a camera looking them right in the face every single time that they're playing. They end up being too worried about the outcome of the game and too worried about their outward appearance to actually be focusing 100% on the game. Things of that nature. Teach people how to be on camera, right? Teaching them how to be on camera is going to really allow a lot of people to flourish. You have a lot of people who are great personalities, but because they'll be talking and sitting like this and not really being able to talk on the camera, and they'll be trying to articulate and trying to be lively, but they don't actually know how to be in front of a camera in a way that portrays the energy that they want to portray. A good example of this has to do with pretty much anybody in NALCS. But if you look at me, for example, I like to be in front of a camera. I'm very bubbly, I'm very energetic, I'm talking with my hands, I'm not really stumbling over my words, I'm talking very fast, I'm talking very fluent, I'm talking very eloquently, and I don't really like to slow down. I like to keep up a consistent pace, and at the moment I slow down, it's going to be me switching to another topic, or it's going to be me articulating on another topic. But anyway. That's going to be one thing. That's one thing we have to cover. It's being on camera, being able to speak on camera as well. Another thing that players have to learn is that solo queue, different from esports queue. I'm going to call it esports queue because I like the way that sounds. So solo queue into esports queue. Solo queue, you're going to be playing against random people, with random people, and at the end of the day, a lot of that control is really wrested away from you because of the fact that there's a huge level of RNG involved in who you're going to get matched with, how many people you're going to be able to rely on your team, things of that nature. But if you're playing in a team environment, that's very different, because in a team environment, you have to be able to rely on your teammates all the time. You have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to do this for my team. I'm going to sacrifice X amount of farms so that I can apply pressure here, and that way these two lanes can succeed. I'll be a little bit behind, but in the overall grand scheme of things, I'm going to be able to help win the game. It's not a solo thing. It's not a one-person show. You really got to play around your team. And a lot of players don't know that. And a lot of teams tend to forget that. They tend to say, okay, we have one star player. Let's build around this one star player. And all of our other lanes are going to funnel every ounce of gold into this one character. But it's still just one person against 5. You guys have to be able to pull your weight in a way that distributes things evenly. If you have a player who's good at playing from behind, 9 out of 10 times it's a goddamn top laner. You have a player that's very good at playing from behind. Force them to play from behind. Make them help elevate the rest of the squad, and by doing that, you put yourself in a better position as a team. Team coaching is a big thing that doesn't really get touched upon all that often, and that's why a lot of players, when they just break into the scene, they don't really know what to do. They're just like, oh, I guess I have to play as a teammate. I think one of the other big points that I want to touch upon, obviously there's a lot of things that people need to work on and be taught about esports, but this is like the main 3 in my opinion. So first one, obviously, being on camera. Second one, being a team. Being able to play as a teammate, being able to play as a team member. And number 3, for me, above all else, is learning how to use social media in a constructive manner that can help build a brand. By teaching players how to build their brand, it makes it so that when they, let's just say they are no longer a team like TSM. Chaos, for example. Chaos was on TSM from its inception and was a humongously popular player. Now nobody knows where the hell he is. I'm pretty sure he's either teaching, coaching, or playing on a team in China. Nobody hears about him anymore. Nobody really cares about him. He's fallen completely out of relevancy. By teaching people how to build up their brands, even if they're no longer on this star team and this top tier team, you won't see them falling out of relevancy, and you won't see them already being from, okay, I'm stable, I can pay my bills, I can afford to put some money away, things of that nature, to what the fuck do I do with my life? And that's happened to a lot of players, and it has a bigger effect than people realize. Going from the esports scene where you're comfortable, even if you're not making a ton, it's still something comfortable because you're doing your passions, you're being able to flourish as an esports player, and you're being able to get paid to do what you love. So all of a sudden, all of that's gone. Where do I go? What do I do? And a lot of players need to be taught that, because the moment that they're no longer in esports, what then? Where do they turn? Do they just go back to their families, or did they make enough money in esports that they can survive on their own for a while, trying to get back on their feet with either another esport, as some players have proven they can do. Players like Zuna, who went from playing on Vulcan to being ousted in a very unceremonious manner, to now being one of the best players in Heroes of the Storm. I'll give credit where credit is due. I don't like the guy personally, but I do think that he has a pretty good success story, all things considered. A lot of players can't do that, though. They don't know where to turn. They don't have the tools available to them to learn these things. They put so much attention on, okay, I need to be able to play so well, they're not worrying about what am I going to do after. You got players like Dyrus who built a brand. Dyrus himself is a brand, and because of the fact that he's a brand, he's able to do a whole plethora of things now. He has his own place, he makes good amount of money through his streaming and other avenues where he's special guesting as like somebody at a con and things of that nature. You have players like that who've been able to build a brand, but it wasn't something that was taught to them. They just had that natural charisma to do so. A lot of people are lacking in that category, so being able to bring that out of players and teach them how to build a brand, I think is going to be something that could be definitely a humongous improvement for esports going forward into the future. And that's not just for players, this is just for people in general. Casters, personalities, hosts, tech people, anybody in esports. Learning how to build your brand is going to be something super important going forward. And it's a big thing to do, and it's a big time and money sink, but it's worth it in the end if you really do want to pursue esports as a career path rather than something that is just temporary. Now, regarding casting, being able to have a place where casters can get regular work. There's a lot of casters in the scene, myself included, where I work very sporadically. Whenever I'm needed, I'm there. But what ends up happening with casters is that a lot of the time people want us to travel. We don't have that expendable income to just throw towards plane tickets and bus tickets and train tickets, whatever mode of transportation. We don't really have the expendable income to do that. Because of that, we miss out on a lot of casting opportunities or are forced to cast from home, where some people, like myself, I don't have the most ideal caster environment in my room. Sound travels very easily. I don't have any soundproofing in this room. I have 2 microphones here, where one is a microphone that's more for a room like this that has very poor acoustics, and the other one's more so for if you have a bigger space or you have soundproofing and it has a much better quality sound. But there's no consistency there. And some days casting from home might not be ideal because my internet's not working properly or my client's not working or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of factors to go into online casting that a lot of people tend to forget and not really realize exactly how important these things are. We have to pay our bills, we have to pay our rent, and a lot of casters, they maintain 2 or 3 jobs just so that they'll be able to go ahead and continue casting. It doesn't pay a lot. It really doesn't. And casters should be paid more than they are. I think a caster is worth more than an influencer. I will say that, I will take that to my grave. I think a caster is worth more, if it's a good caster, is worth more than any influencer you can get, unless this influencer can drive thousands upon thousands of people to an event. That's just my 2 cents on that. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into casting that really needs to have like a baseline to it. I think that if you're going to be an organization that wants to support a caster or bring a caster on board, that is going to be a long-term thing where, okay, you're casting with this organization for 24 times out of the year. With that, that's basically 2 times a month. Okay, pay them a salary 2 times a month, and just value them based on their ability to cast certain games. That's fine. That also means that these casters know, okay, I'm going to be getting paid this amount, I'm going to be getting paid this amount on these days, so I can be able to do other things in between those times to supplement all that income. And on top of that, I'll be able to know, okay, I can pay my bills on these days. I can pay my rent on these days. I can build around that. I can do work around that schedule. And there's nothing like that that's really in place yet, and I think more organizations that seek to go into esports seriously really should take that into consideration. But I've been rambling for quite a bit now. I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short here. I'll touch a little bit more on what we can do to improve the caster situation on another video. I know I'm a caster. This is what I do. I want the casting scene to flourish. I want more casters to be able to succeed, and I want to think of new ways that we can possibly make this esports scene realize just exactly how important casters are. That if you were just watching a quiet screen, it wouldn't do anything for anybody. Nobody would care. Nobody would be entertained by that. And on top of that, players need to also have a way to be able to survive in an industry, because this is still a new industry. It's not like baseball or basketball or football where these players can go get movie deals or sponsorship deals where they're doing like, okay, Derek Jeter's Nissan or whatever the fuck he does. I don't know. You get my point. It's not like that right now. But it could be. Give it enough support. we need to give it our support, and we need to help it build and grow. If you have any ideas, questions, or comments to anything that I've said, do go ahead and put it in the comments section below. I do have a GameWisp active now, so it is gamewisp.com/CyberOwlLive. You can follow me at Twitter at CyberOwlLive, as well as on Facebook.com/CyberOwlLive. Feel free to go ahead and post any comments there. Tweet at me on Twitter if you have any questions as well. And I will be bringing you guys another video I'm going to be bringing you a video every single day. A video like this, or I'm going to be bringing you a video that's a little bit more condensed as far as my ideas are concerned, or talking about a specific game in general. So I'm going to be putting out a lot more content on my channel through these different mediums, especially now that I'm getting more comfortable with the vlog setting. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm CyberOwlLive. Oh wow. The one of few times that I've stumbled in this video, I stumble on my own name. I'm CyberOwlLive, and thank you guys so much for joining me here for this video. And we'll be seeing you guys tomorrow.